So welcome to this week's episode of the Path Less Chosen, the podcast showing the careers they don't teach you about in school. My name's Sol.
I'm Jamie.
Today we have on Darath, who is a powerlifting coach I've met through his unbelievable content. So a massive kind of combination of two very interesting skills. Can't wait to get him on. And Jamie, what can we expect from today's episode?
Yep, 100%. It's going to be a really interesting one. He's a fantastic guy and going to shed some really interesting insights into the world that he's living in. I think the first key thing he's going to cover is why it's important that you don't wake up every morning dreading going to work. The second one is why quitting his 9 to 5 was one of the hardest decisions he's ever had to make, but he's now living the dream. And the final one is the reality and the stress of quitting and why it was some of the hardest times of his life, but it's well worth it in the end.
Jamie, very well summed up. Looking forward to sharing this with you guys. So let's get on with the episode.
Okay, well, Darath, thanks very much for joining us on the Path Less Chosen, and I'm glad we're getting started. Now Sol's rocked up late. But just to begin with, as Sol mentioned, we like to go in nice and punchy with the first question. So mine's a bit of a kind of overall one to get into what you're doing right now. So I think for anyone that's just seen the thumbnail of what we posted out for you in this podcast, and we're labeling it a powerlifter, and for anyone who's looked at your Instagram and seen that you're a coach, there's quite a few of them around at the moment in the social media era. So what'd be good to know to begin with is what is it about powerlifting that's allowed you to create a career from it, and what makes you different from all of those others on social media?
Okay. Let's see. Let's break the first one question. What made powerlifting into my career? I think that's honestly the only thing I'm really good at. So for context, when I was 15 years old, I got into weightlifting. It's because I want to lose some weight. And then after I lost some weight, I was just this skinny, scrawny kid because I ran so much. So I was like, okay, how can I pack on some more muscle? And then, you went down the rabbit hole of bodybuilding and then eventually strength training. And that's how I landed on powerlifting. I was actually just talking about Jamie about this. He goes, do you watch any basketball or anything like that? I was like, I don't watch any sports because I was genuinely not good at any sport at all. You give me a ball, I cannot do anything with it. And so with weightlifting, it was something that I would just do all the time. So after school, I would immediately go to the gym, come back from the gym, eat, sleep, go back to school and repeat every single day. And when you do that for 5, 6, 7, 8 years, you just become good at it. And that's all I ever think about. So when I transitioned from college, I didn't really know what I was doing. So I was working kind of at a corporate job at the time in this biotech company because my degree was in biochemistry. And so at the time I was just coaching for fun, helping my friends out here and there. And I realized I was actually pretty good at it because a lot of them were making really good results. And I said, okay, well, this is something that I can actually monetize on, right? A skill that I can actually monetize on. And so I started my TikTok on that, just posting random educational videos on specific powerlifting tips, etc. And that eventually grew into something much more bigger than I thought. And then my audience size started growing and people started commenting, hey, can you coach me? I would are you coaching? I was like, oh, actually people, this is a demand that people actually wanted. And so I started dipping my toes in that. Eventually my clients started getting good results, post those results on my TikTok, Instagram, whatever. And that kind of grew into what it is now. I would say to answer the second part of the question is, what makes me different is I would say a lot of powerlifting coaches out there don't put out good educational videos. And I don't know if you guys have done the research and just look at any powerlifting coaches video. They just post their lifts or these random 3 seconds, 5 second videos that's on loop and it's kind of hacking the algorithm, right? For me, at least, I'm confidently can say that if you look at my videos and compare to other people's videos, I'm actually talking in specific things that people don't talk about, whether that's a little form tactic or little form cue tactics that's done in the bench press or the deadlift or the squat that's never been done or spoken about before. So yeah.
Love that. So interesting. And that's exactly my first interest in you is that it came from the fact that you, as you say, you're in this world which is very powerlifting, macho, but at the same time you've got this incredible skill for posting about it on social media and actually making it a really interesting subject. So going right to the start, and I'm very biased in this topic, why did you start posting in the first place? Because for most people, it becomes the other way around. It's I get into powerlifting and then I have to start posting, whereas you kind of did both at the same time, right?
Yeah, so I've always loved making videos. And I just like doing creative things. So I've always done artsy stuff. So in high school, I was actually, I did this art project. I don't know if you guys have advanced placement classes, but it's pretty much the highest level course you can take in art class in high school. And I did pretty well on that. So I was always into artsy stuff, and I would always make videos. And when I first started lifting, I would like film my lifts, and I'll make like these little edits, like these motivational edits for myself. Obviously, I wouldn't post it or anything like that, but that kind of ingrained, I guess, me being already creative and me loving making videos kind of was already in me. And then when I started to get into the rabbit hole of making money online. So I don't know if you guys know Ty Lopez. Here in my garage, my brand new Lambo. Okay, whatever, it's fine. He's like this marketer on YouTube.
Very two very culturally like unknowledgeable people. So apologies on that.
Yeah, no worries. He was this big marketer at the time on YouTube, and he was like the first one that really popularized making money online, or at least one of the bigger ones. And I remember 16, 17-year-old Darath was just watching that on YouTube because that's all I would do, like lift or watch YouTube. And I went to that rabbit hole of like making money online, etc. So that really planted the seed in my brain. And so I would try a ton of like businesses online. So my biggest one would be drop shipping. I'm sure you guys know the drop shipping model. And then I kind of stumbled upon, the website Skillshare. Yes, okay. So Ali Abdul was talking a lot about Skillshare and how you can make really good money from that. And so I was like, okay, what skill can I teach on Skillshare? And I made a full course on how to diet, on how to, because I knew how to diet at the time, from step by step, whatever. So spent like a whole week filming, editing, scripting, or whatever, only to find out that you cannot post those type of videos or like teach people like that because I guess it's a safety hazard or whatever. So I was like, fuck, what would I do? And so, by the way, can I swear on this? Or no? Okay.
Yeah, don't worry.
And so I was like, okay, what did I do then? So then at the time TikTok was blowing up. So I was like, I already made the fucking course. I'm just going to post it on TikTok. And that eventually kind of led to, okay, people picking up on my videos, started more health, fat, diet stuff videos. And then eventually when I started posting powerlifting videos, that's when things started blowing up. If that makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah, I find that fascinating because I think particularly in the modern era, gone are the days where if you meet someone that's passionate about fitness and want to make it into a career, they just go down the kind of traditional personal training route, right? Go and get a job at a gym, get your personal training qualifications, and then start doing it, right? I think nowadays, and we kind of touched on it at the start, there's a lot of people that actually realize that where it is to both monetize that love and make it into a full-time career is actually the power of social media. So really interesting that you picked up on that quite early, but more so because you were looking at it for other things like drop shipping to begin with, and then realized you could actually monetize your fitness model. So I think for anyone listening that's maybe thinking something along the lines of fitness, of health, of educational models, like similar to what you were sharing, I think you've already raised one really important point, which is making sure that the quality of the videos and content that's put out is good education and actually proper ones. But also just be interesting to know, do you think it's then an absolute essential, and kind of what are the key traits that someone needs to have in order to be able to share stuff on social media for it to catch on, and then for them to be able to monetize it into being a coach in your kind of field? One
thing I think is very important is that you got to talk from experience. Because if you are just reading a book and then regurgitating it, you're not reading it. You're not actually putting out value that's already new or novel, right? And it's not going to click with people because, like, oh, I already seen it before. It's not going to, how many times you're going to say, here's the 3 best dieting act. Like, I've seen like a million of these, right? But if I say, here's my 3 best dieting hack that I've done to personally lose myself for like 10 to 15 pounds, okay, that's a different experience. That's something novel. You're going through that and you actually experience it. And now when you talk about it with confidence, rather than, I'm just reading a script that I wrote from a book, whatever, you know what I mean? So that's number one, is making sure that you actually live what you actually are teaching. To me, I think you're a fraud if that's the case. And that's fine. And then go through the experience, learn it, and then you can teach people, and then you can grow as a coach or whatever it is. I hope I answered this question.
Yeah, no, I think it's absolutely right. Like, you've not used the word there, but everything you've just described is on the authenticity side, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, 100%.
With the kind of posting online authenticity aspect, like, how do you find that as a day-to-day experience where, I think one of the hardest things for I guess personal training is not that you're quite in that category, but keeping fit, is that something that is absolutely important to you? Eating healthy, like, how much pressure does that put on your day-to-day life?
Yeah, I know what you mean. I think especially for like bodybuilding or like fitness models, it's very important because like that's your whole entire business, your whole brand, right? If you're fat and you're teaching people how to lose weight, it's not gonna click, right? Like, why would I listen to this guy who's fat? So I think I'm lucky that I'm in powerlifting where it's more based on strength and knowledge of how to get stronger. That's more looked upon as good rather than the body. I mean, the body helps. For me, I think I've been through enough where I know what has worked for me and what will get me strong, and so I eat accordingly to those goals. I don't necessarily have the need to, I guess, get approval from people based on how I look. If that answers your question, yeah.
Yeah, 100%. And so then on that, I think why powerlifting is my next question, because there's a load of different avenues you can go down in the fitness route. But I think, and I guess this gives you an opportunity to kind of sell your services, right? But what are the specific attractions and benefits of powerlifting, and why was that the route that you chose to go down?
Okay. Like I mentioned before, it's what I was good at. I was strong as a kid, I think relatively. Like when I was 16, I was already deadlifting 500 pounds, which is at the time was kind of crazy. And as a 16-year-old, to me, I was in my own isolated world. But when you kind of show that to the world, they're like, holy shit. Like, I was like, to me, it didn't know because I'm just moving weight, right? And so that gave me validation that this is something I'm good at. And because I'm good at it, I can teach people, and it's a skill that can be transferable, right? And then when I'm selling or when I'm teaching people anything, I'm doing it with confidence because I know I'm good at it. I have proof, have evidence, if that makes sense, yeah. Compared to like, I don't know, me having a shredded body. I don't have a shredded body, right? I can move weight, and that's something I'm confident in.
Yeah. So, no, I think that's a great answer. I also think it's important because we like the element of transparency on here, where we actually go through the paths of what's led people to where they are now. And you obviously touched on the fact there that this has always been something you've been good at from when you were very young. But it's important to mention that you haven't always had it as a career from straight off the bat. Mm-hmm. So let's take a little bit of a backward step. There was actually a time when you were in the 9 to 5, the corporate world that Sol's recently left as well. So it'd be interesting to know what exactly you were doing in the 9 to 5 and the kind of steps that it then took into doing what exactly you're doing now.
Okay. Yeah. Context, I guess, in college, I studied biochemistry. That was my major. In high school, I thought I wanted to be a scientist. I thought I wanted to go into academics, get my PhD, do research, etc. And then in college, once I started learning how to make more money with dropshipping, I was like, fuck all that. I don't want to do any of that anymore. But at the time, I didn't really have a direction to go. I didn't know coaching was like a viable option for me. So I was like, let me just apply to a job at the time and I'll figure it out. Like, I just need money at the time to just kind of go through it, save up. And, if I figure something out, I'll figure something out. The company I ended up working for is a biotech company. Pretty much they make instruments or machines to diagnose specific diseases or all the diseases in the world. My job specifically was labeled as a laboratory technician, which then I got promoted to become a biochemist. That's like the transaction, whatever. And the role was mainly to troubleshoot customer issues. So if, for example, I don't know, you guys know Quest Diagnostic. Okay. It's another big company that does testing, like drug testing for various companies, etc. They would buy machines from the company I work at, and they would use that machine to, whatever, diagnose specific diseases. My role was to, if Quest has an issue, or one of the other companies that they sell to have an issue with an assay or a disease testing that is not working, I have to perform an experiment to find out why it's not working. Right? That was my role day to day. And at the time, I was already coaching because that's when my TikTok and online presence started growing a little bit. But it wasn't something I took seriously, and I didn't really know how to properly systemize and scale the business to what it is now. And so I was doing that on the side, and then eventually I figure out the method on how to consistently get leads, and it became too overwhelming because I was already coaching about 25 clients and then working a full 9 to 5. And so it was at to the point where I was like, okay, my coaching business wasn't a full-time income yet, but I've saved enough where I can go all in, and if I fuck up, I have enough like 6, 7, 8 months to fall back on. So I just bite the bullet, and I was like, let's just do it. So after a year and 3 months ish of working, I quit, and yeah, it was this March of this year.
And I guess obviously this is my favorite topic, but how did it actually feel? Because everyone wants to know, right? How did it actually feel?
It was one of the hardest decisions, I think, to this day, even though I'm young as fuck, 24 years old, of my life. Like it took me months of just thinking back and forth, playing in my brain, like, the pros and the cons. And it took me months talking to other people, asking my girlfriend. I even tell my parents about it because I was so scared of like what they would think. And I was just to the point where I don't know what it was. I was just like, I had a conversation with a friend who works in the business with me right now. And he's like, what's the worst that can happen? Like, you go apply to another job. So what? Right. Or you can make this full time and actually like go all in. And I don't know what happened in that specific conversation, but the next day I immediately went in and like, I'm putting my 2 weeks. But it's till this day one of the scariest and hardest decisions of my life.
Like, for people listening, because this is the question that I think is so fascinating for people who've quit their job. Like, how did you make sense of it financially? Like, how did you work that part out?
Yeah, I didn't obviously quit with nothing in my bank account, but I kind of worked backwards of my expenses for about 6-7 months. I saved up to that, and I was like, let's just do it, because at least I know like if within 6 months things doesn't work out, I can always apply for another job, and then I have 6 months worth of income to figure it out. Yeah.
And then how much, like, if you don't mind me asking, were you making more good money from your powerlifting?
At the time when I was working the job.
Yeah.
Yeah. I would say I would bring in like maybe 1,800 a month, give or take maybe 2K on a good month. But like my job was paying me like $5,000 a month, so it wasn't.
Yeah. But you had, I guess the cool thing is you had proof of concept, right? You had I need to work on this. And I guess a literal, fuck this, I want to go and quit, or was it, I don't have enough time to build this?
It was. I think it's the first one, and I played the scenario in my brain multiple times, and I'm like, if my 85-year-old self were to look at me in this position right now, what would he do or think? And I hope he would say, quit the job, because I won't regret it when I'm older.
Yeah, no, I think that's spot on. I think as well, just because it's so relatable, I guess, for Sol in your exact position at the moment, right? So you did very similar, where you saved up a little bit of a portion, and then you were like, right, I can actually go and give it a go now. Obviously, you're always going to earn less than that job might be paying, but at the end of the day, it's a risk versus reward, right? It's exactly the way to look at it. I love the idea that you're thinking way ahead to think, would I actually ever end up regretting this, and have I made the right decision for 85-year-old me to look back on and be proud of? So I think then to go in on that, is there anything, when did you say it was? May this year, did you say?
March of this year.
March this year. So, okay, we're talking still less than a year. To date now, maybe it's worth shedding some light on it. Has there been any challenges, any times where you've taken a step back and thought, or this might be a regret, I might come to regret this? Like, it'd be good to kind of an honest insight into that in the last 6-7 months.
The first 2 months, I could not sleep. I could not, my brain, I'm like, holy shit, like, this is actually happening. Like, I'm in this now. Like, there's no going back. And, like, I would wake up anxious. I would go to sleep anxious. And it would be like that every single day. And I felt like if I slept, I'm like, okay, I'm not making enough money. Like, I got to get up and do work. I couldn't sleep properly, right? But looking back now, I needed that. I think that urgency and that pressure on me, and I don't know if you're experiencing this right now yourself, but I think you need that feeling in order to execute consistently and constantly in order to get the results that you want. And it helped. And then at the end of the day, by 40 days, I'm good. I matched my corporate job income within 40 days. I was like, okay, well, I can actually relax a little bit now.
Waiting for that to happen to myself. I'm looking forward to that. 80 days accounting. No, I'm joking. Keep going.
I think maybe then it's useful for you. So, like, my next question following on from that is what was it? What was it within those first few months that then made up that difference? What was it the time you were then able to spend on it, and just how did you bridge that gap to suddenly, because that's a big takeoff, right? In the first few months, sometimes, like for example, Sol, it takes a lot longer than that. So interesting to know how you changed to that straight away.
Like I said, I think it's the urgency now, the fact that like there's nothing going back and there's no more safe net, right? When I was on my corporate job, I knew like, okay, if I didn't get a client, whatever, I still have my full-time job. Like at the end of the day, I'm still going to get paid. This job that I'm currently now, if I don't post a video or if I don't do work or whatever, you know what I'm saying? If I don't like try to improve some way, somehow, or execute, I'm not going to get paid. No one's going to come and hold my hands anymore, right? I can't fall back on a corporate job where like I can just clock in and clock out and make money regardless. So it was ultimately like this feeling and this knowing the fact that like this is all me. Like there's no one else helping me.
It sounds like I 100% get that. But for people who are listening who are like, oh, that sounds awful and terrifying. Like on the other side, has it given you, like, how has your life changed now you're doing this versus what you're doing in the corporate before?
I'm a lot more fulfilled every day. Like when I was working on my corporate job, I would dread waking up every morning. I'm like, oh, I gotta do it again. I gotta do it again. Every now I wake up knowing, okay, I actually get to do what I've always wanted. I'm literally, sometimes it hits me like I'm living the dream that I've always wanted to live, right? Like I don't have to work for anybody. I don't have to do something because someone tells me to do it. I'm doing because I want to do it. And regardless of what I was doing, I was already making videos for fun when I was working my corporate job. Now I get to do it because it's my job, like, which is so cool, right? If you think about it, like, I'm getting paid just to make videos that I would otherwise be doing anyways. And I think that's ultimately, hopefully, the goal for everybody, like to get paid to do what you always wanted to do anyways, right? Like, you know, if you guys like to sit and talking to people and you get paid for that, that's amazing. Like you made it, you know?
Again, we're still waiting for that part. So anyone who wants to pay us to do this would be nice, but free value, right? That's what we're doing now.
Of course. No, like that whole message was such good content, like so interesting, particularly the stuff about like not waking up every morning thinking like, why am I bothering going to work? Because I was literally in London last week, right? And for context, like, I hate London, but I have to go down there sadly because a lot of stuff happens there. And just listening to like kind of everyone I was meeting with and talking with, they're exactly the same. They don't want to go to work every morning. They're like, oh, here we go again. And the fact that you're sat there, like you wake up excited every morning, plus you get to do something that you consider as the dream. So perfect. That's such good content. And then to go into looking into the future, you say you're already, when you think about it, put in perspective that you're already living the dream, right? But talk to us about the next 5-10 years. Where can it go? Like, what's the kind of ceiling for something like this? It'd be great to understand where, because you're only 24, same age as Sol and I. There's a lot of years ahead where you can build this into something quite special, right?
Yeah. I think powerlifting coaching, there will be a ceiling. And I think I've always near that ceiling, which is fine because at least the leverage that you can with powerlifting coaching, specifically powerlifting coaching, is so niche and so low value at the time, at this moment, that I don't think I can scale anything past that. And so I think I've systemized my business enough where that's now a new skill that I can teach people. And my whole goal is to constantly acquire skills, get good at them, and then eventually pass that on. So same thing with powerlifting. I've acquired the skill of powerlifting. I understand how to program. I understand how to get people strong. Let me sell that skill or my services, whatever. Now I've built a business model myself where I've scaled it to the point where it's a full-time income, and I helped other coaches as well do the same. At least, and that proves I have some proof of concept, which then I'm thinking right now, or actually I'm already working on teaching people how to grow and scale their own fitness coaching business. Yeah, but that's in the works right now, and I think that's going to be a much more high leverage opportunity for me, which then I can then scale past whatever the revenue may be for that. Yeah.
I love that. Guru yourself out, Darath. It's all roads lead to that, right? It's so funny.
Yeah, all roads lead to that. Yeah.
Mate, well, thank you so much for that. And in terms of the final question that we like to ask the guests is basically if you were to go back to a time, say, you know, was when you're in your corporate job, what is one thing you do the same? What is one thing you do differently? And what is one thing you tell yourself to motivate yourself?
One thing I would do the same is probably continue posting videos. I think like sometimes I was like, oh, I'm too busy for work, or I'm too, like, this doesn't matter to me, like on the side business stuff. Like I would tell myself to keep posting videos no matter what. Like at the end of the day, post a fucking video, get that out. What I would do differently is worry less, because I was so worried that I won't succeed. I was so scared of failing all the time. I was so scared of what people think about my videos that I wouldn't post as often, right? And what I would tell myself to motivate myself, I would say, you won't see the dots connecting now, but you will in the future. So just keep going.
Amazing. What a way to finish that is. Yeah, I mean, that's a fantastic way to finish. It sums it all up really nicely, mate. Yeah, I mean, fascinating to listen to. I'm sure I speak for Sol and I when I say, like, throughout that, it was kind of everything this podcast is about for someone who began in a corporate world and now is doing something they love and can literally describe it as living the dream. I mean, taking a big plunge, but now being able to do that is fantastic. So I really appreciate you sharing that with us. Really useful insights. I'm sure everyone listening would have found it very useful. So thank you very much.
Thank you guys for having me. I appreciate it.
Unbelievable podcast. Enjoyed that a lot. Obviously, very happy we got him on. Jamie, do you want to fire off with the first takeaway?
Yeah, few ones to be honest with him. I think it was really interesting listening to what he's doing, and I think probably the biggest takeaway from me that I'll go with first is that a lot of what he's doing that I also think is applicable to any kind of path less chosen people are going down is the whole sticking to being authentic. And what he said is when you're going to do something like this, you need to really make sure that you're talking from experience, and then that allows you to talk with confidence as well. And that everything you're putting out, if you're doing it from experience and with confidence, then it comes across as authentic, comes across as a bit unique, comes across as new. Because he said the worst thing you can kind of do is just regurgitate what other people do that people see thousands of times. You've got to be able to offer something unique to be able to make that a path less chosen that's viable for you, and not just fitting into the crowd where you can't really make yourself stand out. So that whole idea of putting out value in a way from your own experience with confidence, I thought was a really important message to get across.
100%. And like, it's exactly why it's so important to think about what you're good at and what you like, because that's like what the market and what people are going to be interested in paying for. So yeah, spot on with that. And in my takeaway, and obviously this is going to be my takeaway, but he said something which was like, what would 85-year-old B look back and think? And I think that's just so true. Like, he turned around when he was considering quitting his job and he was like, what would I think if I was older? And that it kind of made that no-brainer. I think too many people think about like, is it going to be crap in the next few weeks? Is it going to be crap in the next few months? But you know, the thinking about what you'll actually look back on and regret and not regret, I think a pretty good way of looking at things.
Yeah, I think a couple of guests have said that now, like looking at what older you would think about what you're doing now. And I think 100% it's always going to remain a very important takeaway, because it's a great way of looking at it, right? Looking at what the future you would like to be and where you'd like to be, and working back from that point. So yeah, I like that. And I think for my third point then, to link it in slightly, it's all well and good saying that, yeah, future me would like me to quit my job, but there's a few practical things to go with it. And I thought the biggest takeaway I think to share with the audience is the idea of the financial side of things. And I think he shared some really important messages, that he was very sensible about it and set himself up to be able to do it. He knew full well that he couldn't go all in for it until he was in the right position to do so. And he said that he was only applying to some of these jobs because he knew he needed to make a little bit of money on the side to keep him going. And he got into a position where he then saved enough money to allow him to drop it. And that gave him a bit of a buffer, that it meant that he had a short period of time to be able to build it up and go all in on everything. And he asked himself, what's the worst that can happen? He can go get another job. But for that buffer period is so important, so that he could dedicate all of his time solely into building the business that he wants to build. So I think that's such an important takeaway to mention to anyone thinking of quitting their job. Make sure you've got a little bit of money in the bank, or at least a nice free bit of accommodation courtesy of your parents or something like that, just to be able to make sure that you're not going to end up on the streets while you're trying to build your business, because it is unfortunately the reality of life that you need something behind you to be able to allow you to do that.
100%. And I saw way too many people who came out to Bali who had basically quit stupidly, and either like dying from stress or made really stupid business decisions, all to make a bit of money. So yeah, wholeheartedly agree with that, Jamie. And yeah, appreciate that. So in terms of a sum up, takeaway is give value through your experiences. The second one being think what older you might think. And the third is make sure you have a financial buffer if you are thinking about that leap. Enjoyed that a lot, mate, and loads of takeaways, obviously very personal to me about the whole quitting the corporate, so love getting into that. Check Darath on Instagram. We'll put all the links if you are thinking about getting into powerlifting, or if you want some help in scaling a coaching business, then I'm sure he's the man to ask, and genuinely one of the nicest guys. I can't really imagine him squatting or deadlifting the weights he does when he kind of speaks so nicely. But yeah, anyway, and please give us a follow on social media if you do get the chance, and we look forward to catching you on the next episode.